everything to recommend it. Thank you.
Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Take a call on behalf of first for the South Taranaki District Council Cold Creek Rural Water Supply Bill. And what a lengthy name it is for what is a relatively small water supply setup. And I firstly would take exception that the Honourable Nick Smith put us in the ranks of those that would be opposing this, because he obviously hadn't heard my previous speech back earlier this year, where we said that New Zealand First had looked at all the facts of this matter and would be supporting this particular proposal, because it did seem to, at the end of the day, stack up. And so that perhaps takes that out of the sails of Honourable Nick Smith, who was making out that we were doing otherwise. And one of the reasons that we supported it was it did come to our local government select committee, and it came quite a number of times, and it was thrashed out at length and was sent back to the local council. It was sent back to the officials, and indeed there were other advisors that came along, and we managed to sort of flesh it all out to get some pretty good improvements out of the whole thing, because in the beginning there were doubts about some aspects of it, and we had some grave doubts. And I think it started off from the situation where there were concerns from the council that the local member, and this is the member who's in part of the self-admiration club of the National Party, who had gone along with the chairman of the water company, Mr. Neville Ardern, who happened to be the brother of the MP Shane Ardern, who happened to be mates of the local MP Chester Burrows. So, you know, nepotism is alive and well in the National Party, obviously, as we heard in question time this afternoon. So nepotism is alive and well. And it was unfortunate that the local government committee was told that there was a little bit of standover tactics from these people, that these MPs and the chairman of the water company sort of stood over at this council meeting of the South Taranaki Council and said, well, basically, if you don't agree to this, if you don't do this, we'll have it rammed through Parliament anyway, and you won't have a choice in the matter. And I think that set off a few alarm bells for members of the committee when we heard that there were elected members of Parliament putting pressure on the local council to comply with their wishes, which included the brother of one of the members of Parliament, or they would basically have their local government rights locally taken away by Parliament. And so the Honourable Nick Smith can sit there and smile and say, well, this is, you know, the National Party giving the locals what they want and the locals their opportunity to speak. It was only as a result of the local government committee spending a lot of time and making sure that the local people weren't actually being walked over by a few heavy-hitting members of Parliament with family members associated with the deal, that was the case. Now, in regards to this, we were also very concerned that the people weren't being asked about it, and one of the requirements of our select committee was to get a referendum in place, and that was when New Zealand First said we would be prepared to support it if the local people affected by the scheme and who were the users of the scheme and in that catchment area of the scheme at least had the right to be asked, do you want this to be taken over by your local people, or do you want it to be left as is? And so the fact that we were able to get that referendum included in the bill was a major step forward as well. As we also were concerned when we heard from local iwi who felt that they had not been consulted adequately, and that some members of local iwi who submitted to the local government committee felt that they'd been left out of the loop entirely. And again, we were somewhat surprised that there had not been adequate consultation. So again, we got built into the bill that there would be improved liaison with local iwi. So that was a good outcome. I think at the end of the day, this is a somewhat unique situation in that the source of this supply comes high up on the sides of Mount Taranaki, Mount Egmont, and comes down into this particular catchment area. It was developed 30, 40 years ago by the locals. who at the time needed water reticulation and irrigation for farms, and also water for some of the small housing dwelling people in the area. And now there's more than 500 or 600 people who are consumers of the scheme. And therefore it is a unique scheme in a sense, in that it's self-contained. It is for the one community. It doesn't then go on and feed others or link into anywhere else. It is a self-contained scheme, and it is one that where a lot of local money has poured into it from the various farm owners. We were told a lot of work had been done voluntarily over the years by farmers to keep the pipes and keep the scheme operating. A lot of labour had been put in over the years. The council had also provided at no cost some engineering and assistance and expertise over the years. So it was a bit of a joint effort on the parts of many, and some taxpayer money had gone in to subsidise parts of the scheme to ensure that it operated. And so in that respect, it has been a win-win for the community, and by returning it to community ownership of the people who are the scheme users, then it does become very much a cooperative water scheme which has merit. We were also concerned, the committee, in terms of health issues, and you will note that in the bill there's also provisions there that there must be consultation with the health department in terms of the quality of the water, because again we didn't want to see a situation where the scheme was not meeting quality health standards. And that does raise, for the Honourable Nick Smith's benefit again, the fact that all around New Zealand, local government and local communities for the last 10 or 15 years have increasingly had to meet higher and higher potable water standards for good, healthy drinking water, which has been a big burden on many communities in New Zealand to get their water up to standard. And there's been some considerable cost going all around New Zealand to improve the infrastructure in our water supply systems around New Zealand to ensure that we do have good, healthy, clean drinking water. And therefore, often Dr. Nick Smith will say that councils are spending some outrageous money around the country on all sorts of things. In fact, one decent chunk of the money that every year goes out is actually as part of the improvement of water supply around New Zealand, which back in the 80s and 90s had got into a somewhat dire state. And during that period, it was very, very clear that many water systems around New Zealand needed some major upgrades and improvements. So, Mr. Speaker, can I just also commend, rather than the self-flagellation committee of the National Party, can I commend all members of the local government committee on both sides of the committee, not just the national ones who like to just congratulate themselves, but all members of the committee, because we all had an input into this. And we did, I think, make some significant improvements to the bill, which at the end of the day, those people in that South Taranaki area and in the Cold Creek rural water supply area will benefit from, and it was a good outcome for all.
Nikki Kay.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to speak on the South Taranaki